So in my career, there's a lot of things that took me from making $25,000 a year to $25,000 a month plus. And in that time frame, I've learned things about myself, how to do business, what kind of work I want to do and like to do, and how I even got here. Now, I have made more than $25,000 a month before, sometimes up to $100,000 a month plus. But I wanted to specifically focus on this transformation of $25,000 a year to $25,000 a month, which is just an okay month for me right now. I'm going through a lot of business changes, a lot of business growth, but anytime that I do over $25,000 a month, I celebrate inside because I remember when I was making $25,000 a year. Now, when I was making $25,000 a year, I was in a full-time job. I was working basically all week, all weekend in something that I genuinely did love to do. And I thought that I was going to do as a career for the rest of my life. And that was working at a talent agency. You know, I love film. I always was really into managing people and being a talent agent, and I was like, this is what I want to do. When I got that job, it was my first full-time job, and I was really excited to be making a salary. In my mind, what I thought a salary was or was going to be, but it wasn't as good as my mind had made it out to be. Before that, I was just working part-time, either at a bar or in retail. Like I had worked at HMV and Blockbuster and other things like that. But I wanted to make more, and I wanted to do something that felt like a career. So I found this job. It was one of the best talent agencies in my entire city, and I got it. I started as the receptionist, and then I worked my way up to being a talent assistant where I got a salary job. Then they told me that the pay was $25,000 a year. Okay, it wasn't even that long ago. It was only a few years ago, and living in a city as expensive as where I am in Toronto, it does not cut it. Like I basically had to live at home, like all the other assistants that were working there. But nevertheless, I was super excited to get the job, and I was committed to the fact that I was going to do the best possible job I could do, work all the hours that I could, learn as much as possible, and essentially just crush it so that I could get a promotion, I could make more money, and I could start taking on my own roster and being a talent agent myself. So after my first few paychecks, which were about $800 every 2 weeks, I started to feel really crappy. Mostly because I realized I was working way more than I thought the money could do. I could make $800 at a part-time job when I was at Apple. Now I was at a full-time job with a ton of expectations, essentially feeling like I was making the exact same amount of money, and it did not feel good. I decided that I would stay there for a year, and then I would talk about getting a promotion. So at a year mark, I went to the head of the company, and I said, I've been working really hard. They could see I was working really hard, and they knew I was valuable, but they were just like, we don't have the money. After I left, they ended up giving assistants a raise because they realized that they were going to lose people that were really invested and could really benefit the company if they didn't start paying them more money. So in some ways, my quitting was a catalyst to some of my colleagues' raises, but that's totally fine. And I'm happy for the ones that did stay, although none of the people that I worked with then are there now, but that's another story. After that conversation, I decided to leave my job. This wasn't the easiest decision because I had just moved into a new apartment. I only had a part-time job at a bar, and I really needed to support myself more fully. $25,000 a year, again, as much as it seemed like a lot, I was starting to meet people and experience a whole other world, which is people that use the internet to leverage their career. So I knew that it was possible to make more money. And I just had this nagging feeling inside of myself that was like, you could make more than $25,000 a year. At that time, I still thought $10,000 a month seemed like a lot of money. Now I feel a little bit differently, but I guess in some ways it is still a lot of money, but I'm consistently trying to obviously climb up. But here are 3 key changes that I see in my life between that time where I was doing $25,000 a year and now at a bad month, $25,000 a month. So the first one is belief. I really had to believe that there was more out there. There were a lot of people around me at that time who did not believe there was more out there. Most people were pretty content with what they were doing and the jobs that they had. They were like, you make a salary job and that's it. we're not going to be able to buy homes. We're not going to be able to do this. A lot of the talk was around that. And that's when I first really started to dive into mindset at a new level, because I knew that I had to reshape how I thought about things, what I thought was possible. And I was starting to, again, meet people and interact with people who were doing a lot more. I had recently found out about Facebook ads, and I was running my own Facebook ads and doing my own stores and doing drop shipping on the side of work. So I knew that the pursuit of money and the pursuit of making more money in your life was something I wasn't alone in. There was a lot of other people who didn't want to just be stuck in a salary job where they felt like they were capped. Their money was capped, their time investment was capped, and I really had to believe that there was something else out there. So that was one of the big things that has changed in my life, is that I now know that you could do $1 million a month. And whether or not you think that's a lot or a little is kind of not even the point, right? It's just the facts. The second thing I had to do was find a vehicle. Now, when I talk about find a vehicle, it's really easy to say, I'm going to go into entrepreneurship and I'm going to open a coffee shop. But there's something very specific that you need to do when you're trying to make more money, especially more money a month, is understanding what your costs in and costs out are and all the different business models available to you. One of the things I loved about Facebook ads, drop shipping, e-com, and the agency world is that it was fairly low overhead. I didn't have to pay for an office. There's not a lot of staff to pay for, and a lot of the services I could deliver myself if I just learned how to do it enough. And that is what made me most excited about that business model, because it's not like I had to go buy a bunch of inventory and I had to get a space and I had to hire a bunch of people or pay a bunch to get some app or software developed. I really wanted to focus on a lean business model that I could execute quickly, mostly focus on learning sales and learning my craft, and then grow the business from there. So if you're looking to make more money, maintain more profitability, sell to more people just in general, you have to factor these things in, because I do see a lot of people who are like, I'm going to be entrepreneurs and go into business, but they pick a very expensive business model, a very time costly and expensive business model that's going to take them a really long time. Now, over time, those things have shifted for me, but that brings me to point 3, which is adaptability. Over the last number of years, I've had to adapt to so many things, to changing team members, to changing the services that I offer, to how I offer them, to how much I charge for them, to who I offer them to. It's been an ongoing process, but that is what has led me to go from $2,000 a month to $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 to $100,000. And all of that had to rely on me changing some things up sometimes. Not just sticking to something just because it's what I wanted to do, but really thinking about, how is this working? How much time is this taking me? How am I offering it? How am I positioning it? How am I talking to people about it? Who am I talking to about it? All of those things have allowed me to be nimble, to pivot, and to adapt my circumstance to continue to prioritize how much money I'm making, what I'm doing for that money, and what result that is providing to clients. I still work in the same space. I still do digital marketing and content marketing. I still do production and video. But what I'm doing and how I'm doing it has drastically changed since I started. And that has also what's allowed me to make more. So if you're on your entrepreneurial journey and you just want to continue to move the needle, sometimes you need to pivot. Sometimes you need to make adjustments and think about how you could be more efficient, how things could be simpler. And then you do inevitably reach a stage where I'm at right now, which is I'm adding a bit more complexity into the business in the hopes of it being an investment to make more in the future. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see you in the next one.